served to define, to form, to create, to manifest the very existence in which you exist. Each choice has led you to this point in time. Each choice has led you to this moment. Think of it. The drug addict in Harlem chose to be a drug addict. It could be argued, and it would be argued by many, that most individuals do not have a choice. It is part of their environment. Mother did it, father did it, grandmother did it, grandfather did it. Why not child? The person next door is doing it. The guy down the street is doing it. There is drug pushers on every corner. Drug pushers right down in school. There are 9 and 10-year-olds in school that are pushing drugs. So why expect an individual in that environment not to be a drug addict? And we would suggest to you, dear friends, that if the expectation is that choice will not affect reality, then we assure you that you've just created a reality in which choice will not affect your reality. But we assure you that choice did. And the choice to not choose, or the choice to not use the opportunity for choice to alter your reality, that, dear friends, is still a choice. Now, your reality, that which you see around you, that which you can touch, you can feel, you can sense. You see and touch the tables, the chairs, the bed, the car, the house, all of this. All of this forms part of the reality in which you exist. True. And because it forms part of the reality, you see yourselves living within the limitations of that reality. As we've suggested, if you were in Harlem, your limitations were much different than if you're in Maine. But the key is to recognize that that which you formed, that which you touch, that which you feel, that which you perceive around you, is created by you. Not only you, but by you, yes. So, think of it from the perspective of our example of Harlem versus Maine. An individual in Harlem, by choice, could shift and alter the circumstances of their existence such that they live in Maine. An individual in Maine, by choice, could shift and alter the circumstances of their existence such that they live in Harlem. Can be done. Would it be done? Depending on the individual. The choice is, the key, however, is to recognize that it is each individual's choice. So if you can shift your existence such that you move from Harlem to Maine or from Maine to Harlem, why not then perceive your existence as the series of choices for which it is, and then shift the choices to create the existence that you would like to create? Now, some individuals are quite content with the existence they live in. Not many, but some are. And so they would not choose differently. But the choice they would make would be to maintain that which they've created. And that is a choice. Most individuals, however, would gladly shift their choices, but they see themselves as unable to. And as a result, therefore, find themselves struggling with the concept that choice is the creator of their existence. And as a result, they choose not to choose differently. And instead, spend most of their time complaining about the circumstances of their existence without being willing to choose differently. For example, have you ever heard someone say, Quote, if only I had known, I would have chose differently. Unquote. Or, quote, if I had been told previously that I had an opportunity to choose, I would have made that choice. Unquote. But the individual didn't. And they did know they had a choice. They perceived, or term it, chose not to see themselves as having that choice. And so, easier to blame another than it is to look at themselves and say, I chose not to choose. And so the reality is created by a series of choices. Now we're speaking here very clearly on that which you see as your daily reality. In other words, that which you can touch, that which you can feel, that which you can smell, that which you can see, that which you can taste. In other words, that which affects your 5 physical senses. That's the reality right now that we're discussing with you. That which moves through your 5 physical senses is the perception of reality that you perceive. If you cannot see it, and you cannot hear it, you cannot taste it, you cannot smell it, and you cannot touch it, then it must not exist. That's the concept. Which is why insurance companies give you a piece of paper. Because what they sell you is a concept. But they recognize that if it does not fit within the parameters of your 5 physical senses, you will not accept it. So they give you a piece of paper that defines their concepts. And they say, this is representative. And you hang on to that piece of paper and say to yourself, this is my insurance policy. That's what insurance is all about. And to a degree, it is interesting that in your existence, insurance is representative of an illusion. For there is no reality to insurance. It isn't something that you can see, touch, smell, taste, or hear. Insurance is a nondescript concept. It's an illusion. But given a piece of paper that defines the illusion, you are satisfied. And from that perspective, therefore, recognize that your perception of reality is equivalent to that piece of paper. That which you can perceive through your 5 physical senses defines for you that which you perceive as reality, because it fits with your 5 physical senses. It's acceptable to your 5 physical senses. It is, quote, real, unquote, to your 5 physical senses. But is it reality? And we would suggest yes. Is it the totality of reality? And we would suggest no. Is that which fits within your 5 physical senses real? To you, yes. We assure you, and as long as you perceive it as real, it is real. It forms part of your reality. Change your perception, and it changes the perception of reality. However, it will still maintain itself within your 5 physical senses. But now move beyond the 5 physical senses, and you move into an aspect of reality that in effect is the foundation, the building blocks of that which you see as reality. The reality that you perceive through your 5 physical senses is but the culmination of the energy movement of that which exists outside of the 5 physical senses. In other words, it is a small focused, a small portion of it. It's like having the eye at the large portion of the funnel and looking through, and all you see is the small portion at the end. What you see at the end is limited, but it is real because it is part of the 5 physical senses. But beyond that exists a great vastness that interacts to bring about that which you see at the end of the funnel. And that, dear friends, is the true nature of reality. It is the vastness of existence, that which moves all of existence, that which manifests itself, that which creates, that which is the energy of movement in existence. That is the vastness of existence, and that is the true nature of reality. That moment in time, that movement has stopped in order to create something that fits and can be defined by your 5 physical senses is true. But that movement of energy that has stopped sufficiently or focused sufficiently in order to define itself to your 5 physical senses, that movement of energy is but a part, a very small part of the true nature of reality. Reality is flow. It is constant movement. It is to and fro. It is not static. It is not, in effect, stopped. But that which you perceive as reality, you see it as stopped. You see it as static. You see it in a way that can only be perceived by your 5 physical senses. And recognize, dear friends, your 5 physical senses are limited. Think of it. Your sense of touch is limited. How is it limited? It is limited from many aspects, but one aspect is it is limited to only that which you can touch. So if you stand in a room and you extend your arms outwards and you cannot touch the walls and you cannot see the walls and you cannot smell the walls, you cannot taste the walls, and you cannot hear the walls or hear sound bouncing from the walls, then you would say to yourself, this is a room without walls. This is a space. There are no walls. But the walls would exist and do exist. But because you are limited by that which is your 5 physical senses, you cannot then define those walls. Try it. Put yourself in a room that is completely dark. Turn off the lights. And now close your eyes and extend your arms outwards. And define the space that you find yourselves in. We assure you, you will not be able to. For you would see it as an undefinable space. Yet that which those who exist outside of the room would see it for that which it is, which is a room. And from that perspective, therefore, recognize it is simply perspective that creates your reality. If you stand outside of the door and you see a room, we assure you, you will define it, the space as a room. But stand within, where your senses are useless, and you will see yourself as in space. Think of it. If it weren't for your feet on the ground, you would not know that there is ground. You would not be able to define ground. It would not exist as part of your concepts, as part of your ideas of reality. The fact that your feet constantly touch the ground is what defines your reality. And if not the ground, then something attached to the ground. But place yourself in space, where feet touch nothing, arms, the whole body touches nothing. In other words, your 5 physical senses, the sense of touch, no longer applies. And immediately you have fear. Why? Because that particular concept moves you beyond the limitations of your very own nature of reality. Your nature of reality is that you are a physical being with a sense of touch that must, by its very nature, be satisfied. And so you search out circumstances of existence that reinforce to you the aspects of touch. And you do the same with the other 4 physical senses. You search out circumstances of existence that reinforce to you the aspects of your 5 physical senses. It reinforces it. It maintains your perception of reality. But now shift those perceptions. And what do you become? You become something different. Still part of reality, but something different. And so the nature of reality is not really the nature of reality. If the nature of reality can be shifted by perception only, then how then can the nature of reality be discussed and defined? And through this particular workshop, dear friends, you will begin to recognize that the nature of reality is undefinable, unlimited, and as a result, therefore, creative. Think of it. If you could not define yourselves based upon your perceptions from your 5 physical senses, how would you define yourselves? How would you perceive yourselves? How would you then manifest yourselves? If you allow imagination to enter into this particular equation, then you begin to discover that imagination would lead you in directions beyond the perspective of your 5 physical senses, and therefore assist you in creating a new reality based on a new perception which is imagined. Now, if that's the case, and we suggest that it is, that imagination leads you to create a reality, and that therefore you find yourself in a reality in which your 5 physical senses manifest themselves, then, dear friends, it doesn't take much to extrapolate that imagination is that which is leading you to create a reality sufficient to your 5 physical senses, and that the limitations you impose on your imagination is what maintains your perspective of this reality. Think of it. It is the limitations that you impose on your imagination which limits the creation of your reality. For if you had no limitation on your imagination, anything could be created. Let's explore setting aside a small limitation of imagination, using the example of Harlem and Maine. An individual in Harlem imagines himself into middle class suburbia. Imagines himself in an environment where his greatest fear is how much he'll pay for his new car. And imagines himself, therefore, out of the circumstances of existence in which he finds himself in. What does that do? If he can perceive himself away from those circumstances, then he would choose differently. He would choose to move himself away from those circumstances. Now, there are many other belief structures involved here that might maintain him in those circumstances, but imagination will assist him in moving beyond those.